Imagine discovering a door beneath your house. You open it, and instead of a basement, you find a staircase disappearing hundreds of feet into the earth. Then you discover bedrooms, kitchens, storage rooms, animal stables, wells, religious spaces, and entire networks of tunnels. This isn't science fiction. It's real. Beneath the landscape of central Turkey, ancient people carved enormous settlements into volcanic rock. One of the most famous is Derinkuyu. It descends roughly 85 meters, or about 280 feet, beneath the surface. And estimates suggest it could shelter around 20,000 people, along with animals and supplies. But here's the part that makes the whole thing unsettling. These people weren't simply hiding in a cave. They were creating another world. A world underneath the world. And that raises a much bigger question. What could possibly make thousands of people decide that living underground was safer than living in the sunlight? To understand that, forget the way we imagine ancient villages. We picture fields, wooden houses, campfires, people working under an open sky. But for much of human history, the surface was a dangerous place. There were raids, wars, political upheaval, religious persecution, harsh winters, extreme heat, crop failures, and no emergency services to save you when everything went wrong. If an enemy force arrived at your settlement, there wasn't a police department to call. There wasn't an air force coming to help. There might not even be time to run. So humans developed a surprisingly simple strategy. Don't fight the surface. Disappear from it. That's where underground cities become brilliant. An ordinary village is easy to find. An underground village isn't. The entrance could be hidden beneath a building, a rock, or another part of the landscape. An invading army could walk across the ground without realizing that an entire community was directly beneath its feet. And the defenses weren't accidental. Deep inside these cities, passages become narrow. Some tunnels are so tight that people can barely move through them side by side. That sounds uncomfortable. But during an attack, discomfort becomes an advantage. A large group of attackers can't move efficiently through a tunnel designed for one person. And then there were enormous circular stone doors. Residents could roll them across passages from the inside. Once sealed, the tunnel became a wall. Suddenly, a handful of defenders could control a passage that would be almost impossible for an invading force to push through. But here's where the story gets even stranger. If these places were only emergency shelters, they wouldn't need so many systems for staying alive. Yet underground cities contain evidence of something much more ambitious. Food storage, communal spaces, animal areas, wine and oil presses, water systems, ventilation shafts, religious rooms, and living areas. This means people weren't simply thinking about surviving an afternoon underground. They were thinking about staying alive when the surface couldn't be trusted. And that distinction matters, because a cave is a hiding place, a city is a system, and Derinkuyu was a system. Fresh air had to reach people deep underground. Water had to remain available. Food had to be stored. Animals had to be managed. Waste had to be controlled. Movement had to be organized. And entrances had to be defensible. All of that had to work without electricity. No elevators. No concrete. No computers. No power tools. Just human hands, simple tools, knowledge, and generations of accumulated experience. The rock helped. Cappadocia is famous for its volcanic tuff, a relatively soft rock that humans could carve. But carving a few rooms is one thing. Creating a multi-level underground network is something else entirely. And this wasn't just one isolated place. The Turkish government estimates that the Cappadocia region contains roughly 150 to 200 underground settlements of various sizes. That changes the story completely. This wasn't some bizarre architectural experiment. Humans repeatedly discovered that going underground could solve problems that were extremely difficult to solve on the surface. And there was another advantage: temperature. The surface can become brutally hot during the day and freezing at night. Underground environments are much more stable. The deeper rock absorbs and releases heat slowly, so underground spaces can remain relatively cool during hot periods and warmer than the surface during cold ones. Ancient people didn't need modern climate control systems to understand that. They could feel it. And then there's the most interesting possibility. Climate stress may also have encouraged humans to seek shelter underground in some places and periods. Around 12,900 years ago, the Northern Hemisphere entered the Younger Dryas, a period of abrupt cooling and major environmental change. Scientists know the climate shifted, but exactly how that affected individual human communities is much harder to prove. So we shouldn't imagine one giant climate disaster forcing everyone underground. The reality was probably messier. Different communities faced different threats at different times. And underground spaces offered something incredibly valuable: stability. But there's a cost to living beneath the earth. You lose sunlight. You lose the horizon. You lose the natural rhythm of day and night. And humans are deeply connected to light. Sunlight helps regulate our biological clocks, which influence sleep, hormones, mood, and daily behavior. Now imagine spending weeks or months inside a maze of tunnels. Your world becomes torchlight. Stone, footsteps, voices, darkness. Children might grow up spending parts of their lives beneath the surface. Families could eat, work, sleep, worship, and wait for danger to pass underground. And that may help explain something much larger. Across human cultures, the world beneath the earth became associated with mystery. The Greeks imagined Hades below the ground. Other cultures connected caves and underground spaces with ancestors, spirits, death, rebirth, or sacred knowledge. We shouldn't assume underground cities directly created these beliefs, but the pattern is fascinating. Humans repeatedly looked downward and imagined another world waiting beneath their own. And there's an even older connection. Some of humanity's earliest known artworks were created inside caves. Places like Chauvet and Lascaux contain paintings made thousands of years ago. People entered darkness carrying fire. Then they transformed stone walls into images of animals, humans, and mysterious symbols. So perhaps going underground wasn't only about hiding. Sometimes darkness became a place for imagination. A place separated from ordinary life. A place where humans could create something they couldn't create anywhere else. But let's return to Derinkuyu. Because the deepest mystery isn't the engineering. It's the reason. Who first carved it? Exactly when was every part built? Which sections were expanded later? And how many people actually lived there at one time? Those answers aren't simple. The underground city was modified over long periods, and different communities used subterranean spaces for different reasons. That means there may never be one dramatic answer like, they built it because of one terrifying event. Instead, the truth may be more interesting. Humans went underground because underground solved problems. War? Hide. Heat? Go below. Cold? Go below. Attack? Seal the entrance. Food? Store it underground. Danger? Disappear. It's adaptation in its simplest form. And humans weren't the only animals to discover it. Foxes dig dens. Rodents build tunnels. Many insects construct enormous underground colonies. Animals retreat below the surface when darkness, temperature, or predators make the outside world dangerous. Humans simply turned that instinct into architecture, and then pushed it much further. We built rooms. We built ventilation. We built defenses. We built storage. We built communities. We turned the earth itself into a shelter. There's something almost backwards about that. We usually measure civilization by how high humans can build. Skyscrapers, towers, monuments, temples. But some ancient communities measured progress in the opposite direction. They built down. Deeper, quieter, harder to find. And maybe that's why these places feel so haunting today. Because they reveal a side of human history we don't like to think about. Civilization has never been guaranteed. People have always lived with the possibility that tomorrow could be worse than today. When the surface becomes dangerous, humans adapt. Sometimes they migrate. Sometimes they build walls. Sometimes they fight. And sometimes they disappear beneath the earth. Even in modern history, people have used underground spaces as shelters during wars and bombardments. The technology changed. The instinct didn't. And that's the part worth remembering. Ancient humans weren't primitive versions of us waiting for modern technology to make them intelligent. They were solving completely different problems with the tools they had. They understood airflow, temperature, geology, defense, food preservation, human behavior, and community survival. They didn't need machines to be ingenious. They needed a reason to survive. So the next time you walk through a modern building and turn on a light, imagine the opposite. No electricity, no windows, no sunlight, just a torch flickering against volcanic stone, and hundreds of people living quietly beneath the surface while danger moves overhead. To them, underground wasn't the end of civilization. It was civilization's backup plan. And maybe that's the strangest lesson of all. When the world above becomes dangerous, humans don't stop building. We just change the direction.